Good afternoon, and welcome to week 2 of Introduction Interest Sessions. Yesterday we got to hear from 5 different faculty members across campus about their teaching and research. If you'd like to watch those anytime, they're posted on our YouTube channel, Oregon Welcome. They're also living here on the Facebook page of the U of O Parent and Family Program site. Each Friday this summer, we will be offering several interest sessions focused on helping our new ducks and their supporters get to know more about the tons of resources and programs that we have here to help you be successful. Today's presentations will feature information on Pathway Oregon, mental health services and resilience, PE and rec, and this session, which is especially aimed at parents and family members, is called Protecting the Flock. If you're watching in Facebook, we have staff answering your questions on that platform, and we will answer some of those questions live on camera, so do keep those questions coming. In a minute, I will turn things over to our presenters, who will share information with you for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then when they're done, we'll have a chance to answer your questions live on camera. While our presentation right now will cover prevention and safety services, it's also important to note that this morning we released an episode of Flock Talk featuring UO Police Chief Matt Carmichael. In that episode, we discussed the heavy questions about policing. We felt it was important to wrap that conversation into our programming this summer, so I encourage you to listen in. At this time, I'm pleased to welcome Carrie Frazee, Director of Prevention Services within the Office of the Dean of Students. Carrie is joined by Kelly McIver, Clary Coordinator in the U of O Police Department. They're here to discuss the ways they keep ducks safe. Hi Carrie, hi Kelly, how are you?
Hey Cora, thanks again for having us here. And I'm honored to be able to talk with our incoming families today. So I am a graduate of the university myself. My name is Kelly McIver. I work for the University of Oregon Police Department and been here on campus for quite some time now and been in the area for a long time. So we're very excited to potentially have you join us here on campus. So also very pleased to be here with Carrie.
Hi, thank you. I'm Carrie Frazee. I am the Director of Prevention Services and I work in the Office of the Dean of Students. And I also just want to be another person that welcomes you. Welcome to the University of Oregon. I wish I could see your faces because this is such a big moment. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about your students and some conversations I'm hoping that you're having with your students around safety, around prevention. And so we'll just jump right in and start talking about prevention. Before I get too far into the presentation, I do want to note that we have a lot of resources available at families.uoregon.edu. Specifically, we're hoping that now and while your students are ducks, that you're having conversations around healthy behaviors and how that relates to both substances, but also how that relates to relationships that they'll have while they're a student and once they graduate from the University of Oregon. And so just to start, we'll jump right in. So I oversee our substance abuse prevention efforts, and you can see our website down there at the bottom. And really our goal as we're talking about substance misuse and abuse is how we can be having a healthy student experience on campus. And I really know that you all are going to be really important in making sure that your students have a healthy experience on campus. And so let's just get a couple things straight. We know that some of you have ducks that are under 21. Does anyone want to raise their hand from home? Who has a duck under 21? We have some laws that we do uphold here at the University of Oregon in compliance with state and federal law. And so I just want to highlight some of those pretty quickly. One, we don't permit alcohol, cannabis, nicotine, and tobacco products on campus, in addition to illicit drugs, which also influences or is true for ducks over 21 as well. Some of you are coming from states where cannabis may not be decriminalized yet, and so I do want to focus on cannabis as well. Cannabis is not permitted on any University of Oregon property, and so that's something that if your ducks are traveling to Oregon, they can keep at home as well. But as we look at the broad general substances that might be used, I really want to focus on some national data and national trends that we know is true for college students specifically, and that is binge drinking, drinking alcohol and specifically binge drinking. And so on your screen you see that 56% of college-age students drank alcohol in the last 30 days. Again, this is a national study, but when they look at that data even more closely, for college students, 2 of 3 students were engaging in binge drinking behavior. And I bring that up now because I think these are really important conversations that you can be having with your students. But I also want to talk about how we at the University of Oregon are addressing not only substance use, but how to reduce the harm related to some of those high-risk behaviors. And so we have a lot of resources on campus. We have a fantastic substance abuse prevention team, and a lot of the efforts that we have are really utilizing peer education, a harm reduction approach, and really strong relationships with some of the offices that you see on your screen. And so I'll start with our University Health Center and our University Counseling Center. We recognize that there are different motivations for students when they're using substances. And so I want you to think a little bit back. When you were starting college, when you were in this age range, there are some motivations that we see are really salient with our college students. The first is when students identify or believe that substances will be a way that they can find a sense of social belonging. So that's one category. And one way that we really address utilizing peer education and having a lot of events that are available for your students that don't include alcohol and don't include harmful substances. And so you'll see at the bottom of the screen the calendar of events. Even through these COVID-19 times, we have a lot of ways for students to be engaged and finding sense of connection and a sense of belonging. I also want to note that not all prevention says prevention in big letters across the top of the screen. And so if I were to say, come hang out with me, let's do some prevention efforts, it might be alone for a little bit. However, when we create sense of community, when we create a sense of belonging, we really find that our students are engaging and it's meeting that social need. The other area that is a motivation for students that I want to mention here is also when they're viewing substances as a way to cope. And this might even feel more relatable right now. I know when I first started in this role and I was overseeing substance misuse and abuse, or the prevention of it, I started thinking about what are the influences in my own life? What are some of the pieces that, how is alcohol being portrayed to me? And at the time, I was a mom of young kids, and I remember on some of my social media outlets where folks were, or some of the messages to me were, you're a mom, girl, you need some wine. And that was just the message. And if you think about this, there's a lot of times that we see alcohol, or the way that we hear our own peers talk about alcohol, and it might be something that we earn, something we deserve, something we need, and we talk about it as a means to cope. And I really think it's important that we're addressing that right now. My little mini challenge for you is to think about what are the ways that you're thinking about, talking about, what influences are coming to your students related to substance use in your own home, and how can we kind of shift that conversation and shift that culture, because your students will be challenged here at the University of Oregon in a really great way. They will be so much better for their experience that they have on campus. And sometimes with that challenge, if they think, oh wait, substances might be a way that I can cope, we want to help them reduce that as a means for coping. And so I also highlight our Collegiate Recovery Center, our Counseling Center, and all of the great programs that we have for prevention. We have resources and programs here for your student to thrive, and I hope that you're also having conversations with them. You'll also see that there's safe ride options, and Kelly will talk a little bit more about this, but when our students are on campus, we do have ways for them to get home safely, whether or not substances are in their bodies, and so we'll talk about that as well. And so this is where I really want to invite you into the conversation. There are so many evidence-based practices that the research tells us we should do to help our students reduce high-risk drinking. And one of the best methods is really coming from you as parents and family members. And it's because you care more than anyone else. This is your duck that you're sending to the University of Oregon. And so talk with your students, talk about their experiences, their new friends. What are their expectations and motivations? How many of you are sitting there wondering or hoping that the motivation and expectation of your student is to graduate in 4 years? Start there. Talk about how their behaviors are helping them or hindering them from their expectations and motivations. It's also helpful to talk about responsible choices, what late night options might be available when we're back on campus, and support services as well. If you're starting to notice that your student is needing more mechanisms to help them cope, please know that we have resources here and available. I also want to think back to that website, families.uoregon.edu. We have a fantastic some fantastic materials that are posted there and conversations where you can talk with your students about substance misuse and abuse. It's created by a faculty member, Rob Teresi, who has done some research on the very topic of parents talking with their students. And so I hope that you check that out and look at the resources that are available. I also am hoping that you're talking with your students about relationships. And as you're sitting there at your computer and you're looking at sexual violence prevention, I'm not sure the feelings and emotions that come up, but I want you to know that this is something that we take so seriously. It's something that I am dedicating my world to make sure that we're really taking care of our students and teaching them how they can be a part of the solution for sexual violence prevention. And so let's talk about the national landscape. We know that 1 in 5 women, 1 in 16 men become survivors of sexual assault in their college years. And these data points have been noted for a long time, and you can look it up in the research. We also know that these data points aren't too much different from when all of us were in this 18 to 25-year-old age range. It's something that we've changed how we talk about a lot, though, and I really hope that you all are having conversations with your students not just about the issue, but how we can all be a part of the solution. And so again, here on campus, we have students who are so dedicated to this work. Your students will go through multiple programs. One will be an online program they go through that addresses both substance misuse and abuse, but also consent, sexual violence prevention. And then they'll also have some in-person programs. One specifically that I want to mention, all of your students will go through a program called Get Explicit. And we talk about this really early because we know that students coming from all over may have different understandings of what they think consent is, what they think communication and healthy communication looks like. And so here at the University of Oregon, we have an explicit consent policy. And within that policy, we really want to make sure that our students are respecting their partners if they choose to be sexually active, that they know how to respect their partner's boundaries. I also want to mention that not all students are sexually active while they're in college. We know from data that about half of our incoming student class each year is about 50% have had a sexual encounter and 50% have not. So wherever your student is, they are in the norm. They are normal and they can be validated to make their own choices as they're coming to campus and should never feel any pressure about sexual activity. And we have so many programs throughout the year that I'm so proud of. Our peers are amazing. And instead of bragging all day and saving time, I'm going to show you a quick clip of how our students are engaged in sexual violence prevention. And I love that last slide where it ends on, "It's on us." And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this national campaign where it says, "It's on us to prevent sexual violence." Our students have taken it a step further. We say it's on ducks to prevent sexual violence because it really is on all of us. And I bring this up to you because there are a lot of behavior change mechanisms where there's an individual approach to prevention. And more recently, I'm thinking about myself, and maybe I want to reduce my stress by exercising. I'm wanting to have an individual approach to preventing stress, and I can see exercising as a means to do that. And so there's a lot I can do. I can get a pair of running shoes, I can make a schedule, I can get accountability. And as I give you this example, it's interesting to think about how we can apply an individual approach to sexual violence prevention. And too often, historically, the individual approach has placed responsibility on the wrong person. So responsibility has been placed on, most often, a woman or someone to not allow themselves to get harmed. And that can come across in, don't wear this, don't go there, don't hang out with this person, did you fight them off? Do you hear all these messages? The responsibility to prevent sexual violence is on the person doing the harm. I'm going to say that one more time. The responsibility for preventing sexual violence is on the one doing the harm. And when we take that approach, when we look at prevention on a college campus, it's a little bit more challenging for me to do an individual approach on someone who's planning to do harm, because they don't self-identify. They don't come to me and say, I'm planning to do this harm. And if they did, we have processes in place for them. However, it becomes an approach where it's on all of us. It's on all of us to raise the barriers so that we're not allowing those that are intending to do harm to be able to. And so I'm hoping that you're talking with your students. And on your screen, you see some of the things that you can talk with them about. You can start with some of the myths and facts around sexual violence, and we have these on our website. But more importantly, I hope that you're talking about relationships and healthy relationships. Do they want to have a partner when they're at the University of Oregon? Are they coming in with an existing relationship? Start having these conversations if you aren't already, because you are the one they want to hear from. Now, when you talk about their boundaries, you can ask them, do they know what their boundaries are? And you can probably end there. I don't know how many of your students will want to share with you what their boundaries are, and that's okay. But it's really important that they know what they are and that they can communicate those boundaries to a partner. And this is where, especially for our students that are coming onto campus without any past sexual experience, we're not expecting them to have that here. However, it's even more important that all of our students are able to identify what they're comfortable with and that they can communicate that with a partner. And that also goes back to consent. It's all about communication. And we'll focus a lot more of that with your students when they come to campus. But the other question I'm hoping that you're talking with your students about is, how do they handle rejection? If they're intimate with someone and that person wants to stop, how are they going to handle that? And I think it's really important that we continue to reinforce how important communication is, and not from a sense of fear. We're empowering our students to take care of themselves and to take care of partners that they're with. And I also want to talk a little bit about being a good friend. And so we train our students about how to respond if someone discloses that they've been harmed and how to have a caring response. And I also want to talk about what happens if someone is harmed and where we have resources for students. And so safe.uoregon.edu 541-346-SAFE-7233. That's a 24/7 resource for students, and it could be a friend that's wanting to look in to see how they can help a friend, or it can be someone who's been harmed that's wanting to access resources. And it is so important to us that all of our ducks, all of our students get the same access to a strong education, and being harmed can significantly impact that. And so it's really important if someone calls that number and says, I need someone by my side, I need to talk to someone right now, that we have advocates that can be available with them in 20 minutes. And so this is a really important resource. It's also one that we share with your students, and it's on the back of their student ID. And I like to do this little survey. It's going to be a little different because you're just facing your screen, but I'm going to raise my hand twice. So I'm a parent. How many of you all have sons? Can you raise your hand in front of your screen? Do you have sons? I have a son. I'm so proud of it. We love our boys. How many of y'all have daughters? I have a daughter too. And so I'm bringing this up because for those of you with daughters, for those with you with gender nonconforming students, I know that you are probably listening a lot more intently to the things I was saying. And for those of you with sons like me, I also want to make sure that you don't shy away from these conversations. It's so important that we see our sons as a part of the solution as well. And so I invite you to have those conversations. Welcome to the University of Oregon, and I'll turn it over to Kelly to talk about UOPD.
Thanks, Carrie. So we're here to talk about a whole lot of things around safety on our campus. And as Carrie had mentioned, things are a shared responsibility here, and that is a really key concept that we really try to have our students embrace and that we reinforce with them all the time. So our mission here at the University of Oregon is to provide an exceptionally safe and secure campus environment for everyone who comes here. Students, the people who work here, the people who visit. And what we want to do is make sure that this is an environment where people can really focus intently on the reasons that they came here. So for our students, that's their academics, that's their being involved in landmark research, that's the opportunities that they can't get anywhere else. We want people to be able to have the social growth that they're naturally going to go through here during their college years, and to really focus on those things and to not have to worry to the same extent that those of us who are adults out in the world might around issues of safety and security. So we provide an extra level of that so they can move gradually into that greater awareness, and we're going to help them with that. So what our method is we start right away with trying to help students become empowered and aware. So we want them to have information that they need about what things are like in our community and what the potential risks out there are and what they can do to mitigate those risks. We also want to, as Carrie had mentioned, to empower them. We want to give them the information, the skills, the techniques, the resources that we have amply available on campus to be able to take those steps to protect themselves and to look out for their friends as well. So we are here to also uphold the law and our community standards. All of our safety and security resources on campus work very closely with our Office of the Dean of Students. We make sure that the student code of conduct is being upheld, and that whenever possible, when students go through something where they may have to make a mistake and learn from that mistake, that they have the opportunity to do that, to learn and grow and kind of restore our community as a healthy, safe place. We are here to focus on campus priorities. One of the great things about having a police department that serves exclusively the University of Oregon is that we can focus on campus priorities rather than what you might see in a municipal department that really has a whole city's worth of concerns that they need to respond to, many that they're going to put in front of some of the things that happen to a college campus. And really what we try and do is we try to network and we share information with all of our campus partners. So that includes our students and our employees here, but also we have all these wonderful resources on campus, and we're sharing information amongst one another so that we can really come up with tailored solutions that are appropriate, they're realistic, that they're going to make a difference here on our campus. So maintaining a safe campus. Like I said, it's a shared responsibility. While we wish we could have the amount of security personnel that could maybe helpfully shadow every student and kind of make sure that nothing bad ever happens to them in a level that they're comfortable with, of course that's not something that's actually possible. We have to make good use of our resources, and we have to try to get everyone to play a role in having a safe campus. So the university is going to offer a lot of tips and a lot of trainings out there to students and the other folks on campus. We again want them to have the information that they need to be able to help keep themselves and each other safe. We ask our community members to use common sense to reduce some of the opportunities for things that happen here. We have our police and our security who are constantly 24 hours a day, year-round, patrolling and responding to campus. We ask our community members to observe and to report the things that they see so we can respond quickly and appropriately. We, as police, then are sharing information back out to our community so people know what's happening. And then we ask our parents and family members to help remind students, because we know that they're involved, they're distracted with their studies and with their social lives. We want them to be remembering that there are really simple things they can do to help protect their property and themselves. So maintaining a safe campus here at the university. So as a graduate of the university, someone who's lived in this community for more years than I'd care to share, and having worked here at the university, I can say that this is genuinely a very safe place. Thanks in part to the fact that we have a dedicated police department that's constantly patrolling here. It is really as though that there were a bubble around the campus when you compare it to the rest of the community. That said, we still do have things that we're always trying to work together to make a little bit better. Property crime is the #1 thing that we have to deal with in terms of the issues that we see. We see graffiti, we see broken windows occasionally, and we see things like bike theft. And there's things that we can do that I'll talk about in just a little bit that can help reduce those kinds of things. Misuse of substances, as Carrie talked about, again, it's something that comes along with this age group, with people experimenting. Again, we want to try to give people the help and the reinforcement that they need to make good, healthy decisions. And when they get off track, we want to give them opportunities to correct that and, again, not suffer consequences through the legal system if we can help it. The unsafe interpersonal situations that Carrie mentioned, that is our #1 priority. So while things like property crime can be annoying, it's just things. We know that those things can be replaced. What we want to do is to try to do everything we can to create a climate that will allow people to be healthy and safe and not experience the kind of things that can be life-changing in a negative way. So we really are going to work on those things. We're going to work with survivors of violent crime and getting them the help that they need, and then also making sure that they know what those options are to be able to take the steps that they need and take the steps to be able to hold people accountable who might have hurt them. And the final thing that we'll talk about also in a bit is fraud and scams. It's something that's just part of our life nowadays, with our social media life, with our online life, that there are people out there who are trying to take advantage of other people and take their money. We'll talk about how to deal with those things as well. So again, empowering personal security. Again, primary thing, to protect money, to protect your identity. Don't give out personal information. Certainly don't share financial information. There will be a lot of things, and I'm sure that people have seen this. I mean, people's cell phones these days are bombarded with calls regularly, robocalls from things, to trying to sell, car insurance that you don't need, to sometimes scarier things where people are even going to call up and maybe make a threat about somebody being arrested if they don't pay a fine or a fee of some kind. We want to make sure that people understand that these things are typically false. We don't want them to fall for those things. We don't want them to fall for things that may seem too good to be true. Students can get offers for apartments, for goods, for jobs. If it's anything that comes with an offer that is connected with paying some sort of money up front, they should be skeptical of that. If they're ever uncertain about something, if they're not sure about it, they can always reach out and ask. They can ask the police department. They can ask some of the trusted departments at the university and the Office of the Dean of Students. Lots of ways to find out, to make sure that things are as they seem and not something that's going to hurt them. So again, property protection, that's something that is very easy to do. Bike theft, it's the biggest issue that we deal with on a recurring basis here. Just lock up the bikes. Just get a good quality U-lock, not very expensive, and use those locks consistently and properly, and that will really take most of the opportunities for bike theft off the table. What criminals are looking for in terms of property theft is targets that are easy, basically low-hanging fruit. They want to get things that they can get at quickly and get away easily without people detecting them. So that's why if you present something that is more difficult, they're likely to pass that by. And the more of us that take those precautions, the more that thieves are going to just bypass being on campus here, because they're going to know that it's not going to be easy for them to get away with. Keeping valuables on your person. Don't leave a laptop, a tablet, a mobile phone sitting on a table at the library where you go down the hall to use the restroom or get a drink. There are people that will come and take those things that don't belong to them. It's a sad fact, but it is a fact. So we ask people to keep an eye on their belongings, keep that backpack on your back, keep things secured. If you go to use the wonderful recreation center that we have here, they have free locks for the lockers, even if you're just using it on a day basis. Just pick up a lock for free and lock your stuff up. Don't put it in a cubby unattended while you go work out. Again, there are people that will take things that don't belong to them. We want to make sure that people close and lock their residence doors, whether they're living here on campus or off campus. and that they are not letting strangers into secured areas. Again, that goes for campus housing and off-campus housing, and report suspicious conditions right away. If there's somebody that seems to be trying to gain access to a place that they don't belong, if it's somebody that is not known to be a member of that residential community, make sure that you report that either to University Housing if you live here on campus, or to your apartment complex manager if it's an off-campus situation. So as Carrie mentioned, we have a lot of ways to help people get home safely. That is a real priority for us. We encourage our students to get out and use our amazing community here. There's lots of great things to do, lots of great things to experience. We just want to make sure that people are getting back home safely at the end of their experience. So there are tremendous resources that we offer here on campus. Our Safe Rides program, so there is Safe Ride and the designated driver shuttle. Those things are free to students. They are to be scheduled ahead. You can call of a moment and ask for a ride, but especially on weekend nights, it can be real challenging. So we encourage people to think ahead for their activities, schedule a ride ahead. We also have the UO Campus Shuttle. That is a fixed route shuttle that runs around campus and the surrounding environment. That's another great way to get around when you maybe couldn't plan ahead. There is an app that you can use that allows you to see exactly where the shuttle is at any moment. You can wait inside in a safe and dry location and pop out and catch your shuttle just as it's nearing that destination. So again, we encourage people to use those. Another great thing about University is our agreement with Lane Transit District. It's the local public transit provider. With your ID card with the University of Oregon, you can ride those services for free. So there is a great express transit shuttle that runs basically through the campus area and also goes to downtown Eugene and to other parts of the community that students can ride. And there's also a whole other bus system that people can get the schedule for. It's a great, safe way to get around the community, and we encourage people to use those. So again, we do want people to use that app. It's a tremendous application that's available for mobile devices of all kinds, and students will get plenty of information about that. It's the UOregon app. It's free. It can be downloaded from Apple's App Store or from the Google Play Store. It has lots of great information. It has maps of campus that are just excellent. It includes information about those ride programs, including the interactive map for the UO Campus Shuttle. It shows them how to get around to their classes when they're new here. Lots of great information. There's also safety and emergency plans and directives that are available through that app. So we do want people to use our great nationally recognized safety and risk services resources here on campus. We have a great program called UO Alerts that students can sign up for through their DuckWeb account. They can enter in their mobile number and they will get text messages along with the email messages that we send anytime there is some kind of an urgent incident coming out on campus that we need them to know about and take some sort of specific reaction to. That's a great way to do that, and we encourage everybody to sign up for it. We have a very high rate of use for that, and it helps the entire campus stay connected. We ask people to read the things that we put out. We don't do it very often. We do it when there is important information. So we encourage people to absorb that information when the university puts it out. It's there for your health and safety. We have great self-defense classes, which is not only good for potential use, but also people find it very empowering. It's something that just will help them feel more confident and prepared in life. We have those available from the University of Oregon Police Department, and also great 4-credit classes through PE and Rec. We encourage people to register their devices online. It can help return them if they are stolen or lost. So there's a way to do that online. We do ask and require that people register their bikes on campus. Again, it can definitely help in the event that a bike is lost or stolen. We have recovered bikes before. It is not a frequent occurrence, but it is enhanced tremendously by people registering their bikes and going through the process to make sure that those serial numbers are recorded through the registration program that the university uses. And we also offer 24-hour-a-day safety escorts. and those can be done by any appropriate available staff member that we have with UOPD. We have student security assistants that help with those safety escorts. We also have security personnel, and if it's appropriate and okay with the person calling, a police officer can also perform that function. So it is a great service that we encourage people to use if they are at any on-campus location and want to get to another campus location and it's late at night and they would just feel a little bit better and safer. We're happy to do that. So we want people to stay informed. Our students can add a family member's mobile number to their UO Alerts account, and if you really want to hear about a power outage, then you can definitely make sure that your student adds your number, and then you'll get those notices the same way that the students would. We also want to make sure that people know about the UO Alerts blog that is available online. That's where when we send out information through UO Alerts of a text message or an email, we will redirect people to that blog to give them more information about any evolving situation. It's a way you can kind of find out what's beneath the surface on those messages that you might get. We also encourage people to check out local crime statistics through an outside third party, crimereports.com. And we always encourage people to use apps like Life360 or things if it works for your family, where your student can potentially let somebody know, let a family member know when they're going to be traveling from one place to another, and let someone know when they've reached their destination safely. It's sort of like a personal tracking device that people can share with their family and friends, just kind of an extra added piece of awareness. UOPD, the police department here at the university, is online at police.uoregon.edu. Lots of good information there, ways to report crime online, and also information on crime statistics, and our federal Clery report statistics are available there as well. We're also on Twitter at UO Police, and we encourage people to follow us there. So again, campus is a great safe place, but we really rely on all of our ducks to help that stay that way and to keep improving into the future. So again, we also want you to know that the chief, he's very outgoing. He is very excited to hear from parents. He has kept up relationships with past ducks and their families after they've graduated, and he is happy to share his personal cell number. So it's there on the screen, and if you have any questions or concerns, you're most welcome to give the chief a call personally. We do always remind students and their families that in the event of some sort of an emergency or an actual crime having been committed, definitely call the police first. If there's an emergency, call 911. If there's something that is a safety concern that's minor or something that has happened in the past, call our police department at 541-346-2919, the non-emergency number. But for other things, questions, general observations, or concerns, you're most welcome to call the chief at any time. Well, that wraps it up for us. So I think we're ready to take questions from Cora.
And we do have some questions. I've been watching you both on Facebook along with the parents and family members. So I want to make sure that we get to these. One of the questions that came in is, can you repeat, Kelly, where parents and family members can sign up for those alerts and how they can encourage their students to sign up for the text messages if they'd like to get those really exciting text messages?
Yeah, Cora, that's a great question. So where students can go to sign up for UO Alerts is through their DuckWeb account. So it's duckweb.uoregon.edu. That is where they're doing a lot of their online business. That is where you're taking care of financial information. You're doing registration through DuckWeb. Lots of things. That's kind of the university's operational online hub for students. So just go into DuckWeb, and there is a tab in there for UO Alerts, and it's very simple to be able to add mobile numbers to that. It only takes a minute, and I'm pretty sure that during the orientation process that some of our helpful staff here at the university actually kind of lead students through that. They ask them to take their phones out and kind of go through a process to enter in some of the key numbers and things that we have here at the university. So we're definitely encouraging that all along the way.
Well, and important to note that students can opt in or not opt into the text messages, but they can't opt out of the alert emails that come out when there's information that the campus needs to put out there. And that was implemented years ago to make sure that we had ways to alert campus to things that are happening in the moment. So whether it's a gas leak in one of our buildings or there's a police activity near campus, it's important that we're able to broadcast those messages across campus. And parents, again, can go to alerts.uoregon.edu to sign up for those. And I would be remiss if I didn't include parents getting information from parent and family programs. If you go to the families.uoregon.edu site, not only can you sign up for the Parent and Family Association, but you can also ask just to be added to the email list and any campus updates that are not alert-based, but certainly related to news on campus. Tiffany Fritz, our Director of Parent and Family Programs, does forward those on to the parent and family members who put themselves on that list. So those are all good ways for parents to stay informed around things that are happening on our campus. Another question that we got from Vicki in relation to the shuttle services for you, Kelly, will there be a reduction in any of the shuttles due to COVID-19?
So, Vicki, that is another really good question, and thank you for asking it. So, as with many things related to COVID-19, we are in a wait-and-see approach. So, if we are operational on campus this fall and students are on campus, the UO Campus Shuttle and the ride programs will be functioning to some level. How much and if they are at their full capacity will probably be dictated somewhat by the level that the university is operational with in-person classes and people living on campus. But definitely check in with those programs. So we post our status online. The Safe Ride programs have a presence on the police department website, and it's also something that we put out through the different ways that we reach out to students, messaging them with email newsletters and those sorts of things as well. So we'll let people know for sure what the operational level for the shuttle and ride programs is. But I think I can say pretty confidently that if we have a large number of students here on campus, then we will be providing them ways to get home safely.
Perfect, thank you. Another question that came in around one of the safety services around the escort, campus escort. How long does a student typically wait? What's the average wait time for a safety escort when a student calls?
So waiting for escorts, I would say it varies, but not very long. We typically, this campus is it is large, but it's not too large, and so we typically are able to dispatch whoever the best, most available staff member is, again, whether that is a student security assistant or a security officer or a police officer. And so I would say typically not more than 5 or 10 minutes. Again, we would want them to, if they can call ahead, if they know, for instance, that they're going to be finishing up studying or getting off work from a campus job at a certain time. It'd be great if they could call ahead, then we could meet them right at that time and have that pre-programmed. But if it's something that has just come up at the moment, then they would feel more comfortable. They can call, and they shouldn't have to wait very long, because typically we're going to have staff available who can peel away for something like that.
Perfect, thank you. One question that came in, and we cover this quite a bit in my conversation with Chief Carmichael on the podcast episode, but can you speak to some of the outreach efforts that the UOPD does for students, particularly students with some identity that may have a background where interaction with police is not necessarily a welcome experience, and I want to make sure that we talk sort of broadly about this, but because the chief does go into it specifically, but I know that there are some specific outreach efforts to students on campus in order to make sure that students have a chance to talk with officers and with the chief and talk about their concerns and their ideas for how to keep campus safe.
Sure. So again, that's a very important question. We are very conscious in our police department that we serve a global campus. We know that we have students and also faculty and staff and visitors who are coming here from all over the globe, all different parts of the country, and we're very aware that people have different backgrounds and they may have very different experiences with law enforcement, depending on where they're from and what their life experience is. And we want to make sure that we do everything we can to communicate that we're here to serve them. We are here to do what they would need and like to have a safe experience. We try to have outreach activities often during the academic terms. Once a month, our chief has a Pizza with the Chief event that's open to anyone in the university community, but especially students, where people can come into the EMU, the Student Union building, and have some free pizza and sit down and talk with the chief in an informal environment about anything that they would like. We have coffee with a cop events at one of the campus Starbucks, again, where people can stop in, have free coffee, chat with a police officer. We have student assistants to the chief of police that represent really a tremendously varied background of different student backgrounds, and the chief specifically chooses them to be ambassadors to the student body so that students can go directly to those other students and ask their questions or pass questions along to the chief if they're in any way nervous about coming and talking to somebody in law enforcement. Most people, when they meet our chief, they see very quickly that he's very earnest, he's very open, he's very informal, he very much understands what it means to serve a broad populace with humility, understanding what we do in trying to do what they need. And so we just want to make sure that people understand that. We do have those events. We're sensitive to, again, people's reluctance maybe to reach out to law enforcement. They can always go through other means. We have a great relationship with University Housing, with the Office of the Dean of Students. We have relationships with the folks who advise the different student programs here at the EMU. There's ways that people can get their questions or concerns passed along to the police, and then we will meet with them in whatever way that they are comfortable. And we want to make sure that we do outreach with student groups. Again, we will come to their meetings and take their questions. Whatever they're comfortable with, we want to know, or we want them to know that we are here to serve them.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to put one of my own in because I have listened to this presentation for I don't even know how many years now, and one question that comes up nearly every session, every year, is around personal protection devices. So I'm thinking a lot of times parents want to know if they can send their students with personal pepper spray. I know that you both have an answer for this, so I'll start with Kelly, and then I know Carrie often has something to add to that conversation. So Kelly, do you want to talk about what the policies are around personal protection, and then Carrie can add her advice?
Sure. So again, as Cora's right, this is a question we get frequently from parents and families, and sometimes from students as well. So essentially, any personal protection devices that are legal in the state of Oregon can legally be carried on campus as long as they are being used for that legitimate purpose of personal protection. So the only problems that we have is if people were for some reason using a device in an inappropriate way to victimize someone else and not in a self-defense capacity. That is not really something that comes up very often. I would give the recommendation that if your student is going to live in university housing, to make sure that you read carefully through the university housing contract, because there are some weapons and devices that are forbidden in university housing. Again, things like personal size pepper spray, not a problem as long as those things are being kept and used in an appropriate way. The thing that we do want to add around that question, though, is this is why taking a self-defense class can be so important, because we don't want people in a position of using those things for the first time in a crisis situation. We want them to have a sense of preparation and familiarity with those devices, how they're used, what their capacities are, and to have really thought about this in kind of a 360-degree way what the ramifications are of when you choose to defend yourself in that manner, and what you do next after you deploy a device. So this is why taking a self-defense class can be so important. We have a pepper spray element to our self-defense classes, so we encourage people to take those because we want them to really have thought this through once they are in that situation, so that they have the best chance to keep themselves safe and get away to safety.
Thank you. Carrie?
Yeah, Cora, thank you so much. I'm glad that you asked the question because it does come up very frequently specific to pepper spray. And as you're talking with your students, I think it's important to go back to the motivation for getting the pepper spray. I think if your student feels more empowered, they know how to use it, they have it with them, and it's more of a safety measure that helps them feel empowered, that's one thing. But as you're having conversations with your students, specifically when you're thinking about purchasing from the lens of sexual violence prevention, I think it's really important to know that most often the person who's doing the harm is someone who's known and in some capacity trusted. And so that breaks the myth that it's some stranger in the bushes. It could be someone that they're on a couch with and being intimate, and grabbing their pepper spray might not feel like the right thing, or they may not feel safe even doing that. And so as you're having these conversations, it's really important to go back to myths and facts and empowering our students in their communication skills, and also empowering our students. It's your responsibility to take care of the person you're with. And I think that as we're talking about pepper spray, it's never a bad opportunity to also talk about communication.
Thank you for that. Nora has a question, and I'm referring to this because her name rhymes with mine, but also it's a question I'm probably going to ask of our next presenters because it's such a good one. Carrie, let's start with you, and Kelly, if you have something to add to it, please do. Nora asked, if your student needs to, oh, this is the wrong one. I'm sorry. I skipped ahead. I'm sorry. How would you advise a parent who suspects that their student might be struggling? What are some different resources on campus that we could send our students to? And then Nora, I will get to your question too. So when a student is struggling, how can a parent help their student, advise them where to go and who to connect with?
Yeah, I think you can start with observing the behavior. I've observed this behavior. I've observed that this is a little bit different. So starting with observations and checking in, asking, are you okay? Are you comfortable sharing some of the pieces that are making you feel this way right now? But we have so many resources for your students, and sometimes they may not want to share with you what specifically is going on. And so they can start with our Office of the Dean of Students. We have a fantastic crisis intervention team who can meet with students, who can help them talk through kind of what's going on right now, depending on what is causing the mental health concern. They might be talking with someone in the University Counseling Center. It might be something medical related, but we have so many different resources to meet with your student, to validate whatever is going on, and to also give them the tools and the resources to make sure that they can still move through whatever's going on and still be successful as a student and completing their degree. And so starting with the Dean of Students, recognizing there are so many resources to help your student be successful, and being okay asking, I've observed this, are you okay? How can I help? Is a great place to start as a parent and family member.
Thank you so much. Kelly, anything to add to that? I think Carrie covered most of it pretty well.
Well, Carrie's an expert on this, yeah. and the only thing I would say is not only for the sake of your own student and kind of coaching them to be in touch with themselves and sharing their concerns, but also have them look out for their fellow flock members. That's one of the ways. I mean, a lot of times, and I'm sure, especially if there's parents who have had other students entering higher education before, you've seen this. Maybe there is a little bit of that decline of their willingness to share tough things with their parents, but maybe they're sharing them with peers. And so be a good peer, be a good friend to your friends, and listen for those changes. Look out for those changes in temperament, attitude, energy level. Listen for cues in the things that they talk about. There are so many resources here on campus. We have an amazing health center and counseling center. We have, again, all of the resources in the Office of the Dean of Students, working together with other folks on campus to really try to make sure our students are cared for. So just don't hesitate to reach out. We would much rather have any of these folks contact a student and check in to make sure that they're okay, and have them really be able to self-evaluate and say, no, I'm fine, I was just having a bad day. Then to have people kind of get into a spiral academically or otherwise. So be a good friend, listen, and share.
Thank you. Okay, Nora, I promised. So this is a question for you, Kelly. If your student needs to safely get home off campus after staying late in the library, so going from the library to their off-campus home, any services for getting students safely home to their off-campus living environments?
Yeah, so Safe Ride and the designated driver shuttle go off campus. The UO campus shuttle has some limited off-campus portions of its route. So again, if you go on to the UO maps or the UOregon app and look at that campus shuttle route, you can see where it goes. And then designated driver shuttle and Safe Ride, they do go out into the community a fair ways. Again, we encourage people to schedule ahead with those things if they can. If somebody is in a situation where they are off campus or they have a need to get to an off-campus residence, and those Safe Ride options that the university provides just aren't available at that time, we do have ride-hailing services that are operable here in the community now, so we'd encourage people to use those like they maybe are familiar with and wherever they live at home. There are also taxis, kind of an old school notion, but we do have those existing here. Again, LTD is a safe way that people can get very close to their homes. If somebody's just really in a bind and they feel like there's an exceptional risk, we would want them to contact the police department, because I can't say that we can always take somebody right to their door, but that's something that we've done many times before. We want to make sure that people get home safely.
For sure. There's this legendary story about students who were stuck at the train station because things were iced over and buses weren't running and mostly cars weren't on the roads, and UOPD officers went and collected students and got them to their apartments and residence halls safely so that we could ensure they were okay. So the UOPD seems to really want to make sure that students are safe in getting around town safely. So a couple more questions that I want to make sure that we get to. Kelly, you mentioned the Clery Act a little bit in your part of the presentation, and I know that's part of what you do. Can you dive into a little bit more detail about what Clery statistics are, what the history is of the Clery Act, and what kind of reporting you're doing?
Sure. So the Clery Act, it's a federal law essentially that is part of the larger federal laws that make sure that people have fair access to academic services in the United States, and it requires us to collect and then to publish a lot of statistics related to crimes that happen on campus or very, very near campus. It also requires us to make sure that we have certain programs and certain services available to students around safety and health and well-being, and that we are sharing those out to people. So we of course abide by all of those, and we try to do our best job with that. We really go kind of above and beyond with a lot of our safety services that we have here. But our annual report that is required by law is published every year, and we post that on the Clery site at the university. So we have a dedicated website that is part of the university's website, clery.uoregon.edu, where people can go and find out more about the Clery offerings here at the university. They can read our past annual reports, they can read our crime logs and those kinds of things. So we're very transparent about it. We do like to make sure that people understand that because of the specific nature of the Clery law, that it doesn't take everything into account. It doesn't attempt to really cover everything that could be happening to our students or to people who are connected with the university, because it is geographically very specific on campus property. And so there are other ways to find out either, the crime statistics locally, or there's other surveys and things in our Title IX program. Periodically we'll put out information that's kind of the result of looking at a broader picture of things that are happening with our students and our constituents in the broader campus area. But yeah, the Cleary website is a great place to go to get more information about any of that, and we always welcome follow-up questions as well.
Perfect, thank you. So the last question I'm going to talk about here, and for those of you who've submitted questions that we haven't been able to get to live, we do have staff in the Facebook comments section answering those, so we'll continue to answer your questions as you have them. But Alan is asking if the UO police are armed, and if so, have there been student, faculty, or staff calls to disarm campus police? And Alan, I just want to share with you, maybe shamelessly, a plug to listen to that Flock Talk episode today. We released it this morning, and so if you go to flocktalk.uoregon.edu, you can find it and listen to it from your computer or from any of your favorite podcast platforms. It's one where we ask the chief of police questions around that topic. There have been calls from students on our campus about disarming the UOPD. It is a very robust debate and discussion around our campus, and so I did ask the chief about that very specifically while we recorded that podcast episode. So I do want to make sure that you take a chance to listen to that and really hear from the UO chief of police about his mindset about that and where the UO is in that discussion. So that's all the time that we have today. I want to thank you, those of you who are watching this afternoon. We know your time is valuable, so it's really meaningful for you, for us, that you're here watching and listening and asking us your questions. We know that the safety and care of your students is really important to you, and we want you to know that it's really important to us, and we do take that responsibility very seriously. For more information about this and any introduction presentation, please visit our website at orientation.uoregon.edu. You can also email us your questions at orientation@uoregon.edu, or you can text us at 541-346-1159. And again, listen to the Flock Talk podcast series on your favorite podcast platform or visiting flocktalk.uoregon.edu. And I'd like to make a special invitation to parents and family members. I'm happy to also take your text messages. The number's not going to appear on your screen, but my text number is 541-346-1142. That's also my desk number, but I don't sit at my desk very much anymore. So texting it right now is really the preferred method. So happy to take your questions and field them or refer you to others on campus who can help answer your questions. So thanks so much for your time this afternoon. And to you, Carrie and Kelly, thanks for being here for our new Duck families.
Thank you, Cora.
Thank you.